Hello there, everybody. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Everybody else, welcome back. If you guys may be tired of hearing about this Bryan Kohberger a little bit, but I'm going to clear up a few things that are speculation, a few of the rumors. As you know, Bryan Kohberger is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And so that means exactly what it says. He does not have the possibility to ever get out of prison. The reason he pled guilty to life without the possibility of parole is to spare himself the death penalty, which he was eligible for. And so now he spends his natural life in prison. Is he regretting his decisions? I don't know Bryan Kohberger. What I will tell you from looking at the man, as we have all seen, is that he doesn't seem like the most mentally stable person. We know he's not per se crazy, right? But this doesn't mean he's mentally ill. Let me give you an example of that. A crazy person, a person who is quote unquote crazy, would probably not have the intelligence to receive the college degrees that he had. A person who is quote unquote crazy usually doesn't maintain the proper hygiene that he had, wearing a suit to court, being shaved, having a fresh haircut, being able to control himself in the courtroom with no outburst. Crazy people usually can't do that. That doesn't mean that you can't look at him and see that he is a little unstable, because he definitely looks a little unstable. So there's a big difference between being crazy and being mentally ill. There are a lot of people that suffer from mental illness, and that doesn't mean that they're crazy. I mean, even they say someone like Einstein suffered from mental. You can suffer from depression. That doesn't mean you're crazy. You can suffer from anxiety, impulse control. It doesn't mean that you're crazy, but you have some sort of mental illness. My just opinion in looking at that man is that he doesn't seem like he's all there. So let me play you this quick clip of him being sentenced to life, and we'll get right back into the video so you can just see this 1.5 minute video of him being sentenced to life. Check that out.
I hereby sentence Mr. Kohberger as follows. On count 1, burglary, 10 years fixed, 0 years indeterminate. I also impose a fine of $50,000. Count 2, first-degree murder of Madison Mogan. I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 3, for first-degree murder of Kaylee Gonsalves, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the victim of the family, or to the family of the victim, pardon me. On count 4, for the first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 5, for the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. The sentences on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shall run consecutively to one another.
So as I said, he's gone. He does not have the possibility for parole. So right now he is in Idaho's maximum security prison. Idaho only has one maximum security state prison. That's where he is. I did hear from legitimate sources in the media that it is possible he could be transferred to the state of Alabama. Okay. Usually a state prisoner stays in the state that he committed the crime in, stays in the state that he was sentenced to. See, when you're in federal prison, if you get convicted in the federal prison, the feds can send you anywhere in the United States of America that they want. They have federal prisons in every state in the country, and they can send you to any one of those. So you could be convicted in the federal court in New York, and they put you in federal prison in California, in Kansas, in Kentucky, in Alabama. That's the way the feds work. But with the state system, when you're convicted in the state court system, the state criminal justice system, 99.9% of the time, you stay in the state that you were convicted of, because the state doesn't move people to other states. But there are very, very few exceptions to the rule. And with extremely notorious, high-profile cases, they may move a prisoner to another state. They may move a state prisoner to another state to protect him from being killed. The problem with Bryan Kohberger is that his state is basically known throughout the entire country. So no matter where he goes, they can get to him. So now my point is, are they going to try to get to him, and how is he doing his time? There's been a lot of speculation from other YouTubers that he will be put in the general population after a certain period of time. He will stay in solitary confinement for the rest of his life. He will be in something called PC, which is protective custody, or IPC, which is involuntary protective custody. As we know of right now, he's in Idaho State Prison, and he is in what's called administrative segregation. So he is being segregated from the general population. Bryan Kohberger at this time is not in the general population in the Idaho State Prison. He is in administrative segregation. That means the administration has segregated him from the population. Is he going to stay like that? Anyone that says they know the answer is only speculating, unless they work for the state of Idaho and work in the Department of Corrections. Nobody knows if they're going to keep him in there or not. I'll explain the possibilities to you. They can keep him in there for 1 month. They can keep him in segregation for 1 year. They can keep him in there for 5 years or 10 years before they release him to the population. Or they may never release him to the population. Anyone that tells you they have that answer is only freestyling. They don't know what the Department of Corrections is going to do, because the Department of Corrections handles each case with its own set of circumstances. You could look at cases like Jeffrey Dahmer. You can look at cases like Colin Ferguson, who killed everyone on the Long Island Railroad. It was a very notorious case. So there's been a million notorious cases. Now, I was in maximum security prisons in the general population with some extremely high profile prisoners. Okay. Men that had very famous cases, and they were in the general population, but every state handles things differently. That's what you need to understand. And every case is being handled differently. So again, nobody knows if they're going to keep him segregated or if he will enter the general population. If he enters the general population, what will happen to him? Would someone eventually kill him? Maybe. That's always a possibility. I can't give you the answer, but we don't know him personally. He can have a different type of personality that the prisoners don't mind him being in the general population. But I'm sure there's people with the prison revenge, the jailhouse justice, to know that he killed innocent young girls, and they would want to kill him for several reasons. One, to pay him back for what he did, or two, there's people that look for the notoriety of killing a famous prisoner. There's prisoners in there that they fantasize about that, about the opportunity to kill a famous prisoner. These are some of the reasons why the administration keeps someone like Bryan Kohberger out of the general population. So we don't know what will happen to him if he goes in the general population. But I'll tell you what his life is like right now. That I can tell you for sure, because I know what administrative segregation is like. And so he is basically confined in a cell, but this is not a cell with bars. It's a cell with a door that shuts, and there's a little window inside of the door. The cell, it's still referred to as a cell, even though it's a room. You go in the room and the door shuts. I would much rather, if I was doing time, would want to be in a cell, because being in a room with the door shut is much more claustrophobic. There's a sound, an echoing when the door is shut and you're trapped in the room. It's very, very disturbing. The sound is very disturbing. It really gets to you mentally and emotionally. You're really being sort of tortured. See, when there's bars and you can stand up and walk up to the bars, at least you can see on the other side of the bars and you can hear people talking. You can see people walking by, and it's more of a relaxing situation, if you could use the word relaxing. I would rather be in a situation where there's bars. When that door, but he's not. He's where the door shuts. And when that door shuts, the silence is deafening. His meals will be delivered to him inside of the room. His breakfast, his lunch, and his dinner. They will open the slot in the door and they will hand him his breakfast. And then they will come around and make sure about 20 minutes later to collect the tray and to collect any other utensils that they may have given him. They will not be giving him metal utensils. He'll be given what's called a spork, which is a spoon and a spork in one, or they can give him a plastic spoon and fork, but they will come around and collect it about 20 minutes after giving it to him. He'll receive a regular prison breakfast. He does get the same meal that the general population gets. He's served the same meal that they get. Typical breakfast may be a little container of milk, a ladle of oatmeal, one piece of fresh fruit, be it an orange or an apple. They usually don't give oranges anymore. They're too expensive for the Department of Corrections. So they usually give apples. They'll give them 4 slices of bread and butter. And that's really what breakfast consists of. Then lunch comes around, and lunch is all different types of things. I mean, it's prison slop. It's nothing extravagant, nothing that you'd be serving to your family at home. It's the 2,000 calories a day that they have to give you according to law. He'll be given 4 slices of bread with every meal. For lunch, he may get 2 hot dogs, a couple of peaches, maybe a small thing of salad, And for dinner, he may get something called yakisobe, or a piece of fresh fish, or maybe a chicken patty with 4 slices of bread. Again, a piece of fresh fruit, usually with every meal. So his meals will be in the room. They're going to open the slot, give him his meal, this and that. He won't come out of that room for 23 hours a day. He will be given 1 hour of recreation according to law inside of the United States of America, whether you're in administrative segregation, whether you're in solitary confinement, whether you're in involuntary protective custody, you will be entitled to 1 hour of recreation a day. Now, I don't know exactly the way that Idaho runs their only maximum security prison that they have, but in some administrative segregation settings, that 1 hour of recreation can be as limited as there being a door in the back of his room, and the door opens, and he's allowed to step outside into what we call the dog cage for 1 hour. As long as the fresh sunlight is allowed to hit him, that's considered an hour of recreation. And the reason it's called a dog cage is because he's basically going from his room, which is about 8 foot by 6 foot, maybe 10 foot by 6 foot, 10 foot deep by 6 foot wide. And in that room is his toilet bowl. In that room is his sink. And sometimes they have a desk bolted to the wall. His bed is usually bolted to the wall. There's nothing really in the room. There's the mattress on the bed. There's a desk on the wall. He doesn't control the electricity in the room. The officers will control the electricity. They'll walk by the room every hour to look in the window to make sure he's alive, that he didn't commit suicide. This is what they call an officer doing his rounds. In some prisons, they have a button outside the door, and when the officer does his rounds, he pushes the button, which is a monitorized system, not a monitorized, an electronical system that shows the officer actually did his rounds. Because what happens is so many guys were committing suicide, and they said, how are these guys killing themselves if the officer is doing his rounds? Right? So the officer has to prove he does his rounds now, and there's a button outside of each door that he pushes when he passes. I know that in some of the New York State systems, it works like that. Who knows if it's like that out in Idaho, right? But he's going to be in his room for 23 hours a day at least. He'll be entitled to that 1 hour of recreation. He doesn't have to take it. He can take it if he wants it. That 1 hour of recreation might not be what I explained. It might not be where the back door opens and he goes out into a dog cage that's 10 foot by 10 foot. They might actually take him to a prison yard that is designed just for people who are in administrative segregation. He'll basically have no access to other prisoners. He won't be able to scream and shout outside of his room to speak to other prisoners because they don't permit that. He is allowed to have books inside of his room, inside of his cell. He's allowed to have a pencil or a pen. Usually in that situation, they give you a flexible one so you can't stab anyone with it. So yeah, he'll be allowed to write letters. He'll be allowed to receive mail. He'll be allowed to read books. But that's basically going to be his life. As time goes on, he will be able to gain more privileges. He probably will be able to have a radio in there. I'm sure he's allowed to order commissary from the commissary, even though right now the judge ordered him to pay about $200,000 in restitution and $5,000 to every family. So I know he owes a lot of money. Because he owes a lot of money, let's say someone mailed him $100 for his prison account, they would automatically take 50% of that. Because he has a restitution, and the other 50% would go into his account. So some of the things right now, like where I'm saying he'll be allowed to have a radio, he'll be allowed to have commissary. I don't know how long those things will take for him to be entitled to. Every prison runs different. Unless you have been in the Idaho State maximum security prison system and know the way they run their show there, then you can't really speak unless you've got some really inside information. Because every prison has their own little set of rules and they do things their way. He's lonely. I don't care whether he's mentally fit or not. Pardon me, let me have a sip. I don't care if he's mentally fit or not. He's alone right now. And good for him. I mean, he's being tortured right now. I think and many people are happy about that, because he killed innocent people with no justification for doing so. And when I say he's being tortured, I would probably, I don't know if I would rather receive the death penalty than spend the rest of my natural life locked inside of a room. The fact that he's not in the general population and he's not mingling with other prisoners, he's not having any social interaction with other prisoners, that is torture. He's alone. He's definitely depressed. I would say he's definitely questioning the decision that he made to take human life, if it was worth it now. The reality is starting to set in. Sometimes it doesn't set in as you're going through the court process. See, because as you're going through the court process, there's always this lingering hope in the back of your mind that something's going to happen, something's going to set you free. And you're talking to attorneys, you're talking to lawyers, you're talking to psychologists, you're interacting with other people. You know what I mean? So there's still some socialization going on. But once you're in that room, and that door shuts, and you're sitting in that silence, each day is an echo of the day before. It's like being trapped under a steel and brick umbrella. And at night you lay in bed and you find yourself choking in a silent pain because you know that for the rest of your life, that is your reality. You are not a free man anymore. You will be told when to speak. You'll be told when you can make a phone call. You'll be told what you could eat. You'll be told when you could eat. You'll be told where you can stand. You'll be told where you can sit. You'll be told what you can wear. And You talk about losing control over your own life. That doesn't just go for Bryan Kohberger. That goes for anybody who's watching this video. And realize that when you become incarcerated and you go into the prison system, especially when you're doing maximum security prison time, but anywhere in the prison system, you lose your rights. You lose most of your rights. You are not protected to the rights of the U.S. Constitution once you become a convicted felon and you're incarcerated. Obviously, you do not have the right to vote when you're in there. You don't have the right to bear arms in there. You don't have a right to illegal search and seizure. Those rights are gone. You become a ward of the state. You become the state's property. And you know you're given a number. His number will be 25C, whatever it is. I didn't look up his number. I don't care about his number. But that's what you are for the rest of your life. And you kids or youth or even adults who are living the wrong way and who are committing crimes and don't think that that reality can happen to you, you don't have to kill someone to go in prison for the rest of your life. There's a lot of crimes that can put you in prison for the rest of your life. And again, you will be completely controlled. I have been home from prison. As you know, I served 17 years. I've been home from prison for 12 years, and the experience affects me deeply and dramatically until this very day. It shaped the way I think, it shaped the way I behave, it shaped the way I carry myself, and it caused a tremendous amount of PTSD, a tremendous amount of anxiety. And so it's no place to go, guys. And it's never too late to change. If you're living the wrong way, change. So Bryan Kohberger is stuck in that room for the rest of his life. Will they let him out to the general population? It is a possibility. It is a possibility. But I'm sure the administration fears what will happen to him if he goes into the general population. They fear that he would be killed and they would be partly responsible for not taking the protective mechanisms that they have to take according to the state. So that guy in there, that guy is sitting in there, in my opinion, regretting his life decision because he could live another 50 years and that's where they'd be spent. Behind razor wire, behind cement walls, being told what to do, what to say, where to stand, what you can eat, when you could use the phone. You're not a person anymore. You are, but you've become a person that belongs to them. I'll see you guys later. I'll post another video soon. Take care.